Right, so you guys have been wanting to watch some more horror stuff, and by you guys, I'm definitely not saying that as an abject way to abstain myself from responsibility of my own spooky horror stuff. But a lot of people have talked about this in the past, and I love, and by love, I mean hate horror games and movies and all things in between, and yet I still subject myself to them for the sake of clicks. So here we are once again, standing in my own humility, trying to abstain myself from any sense of responsibility. So, this is All Tomorrow's The Future of Humanity. No idea what it's about. There was 2 different variations. This was the one that I got told to watch. If I should have watched the other one, blame the person who told me to watch this one. And, let's see what this is all about, shall we? And if you are new, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you go check out the original. Join me live on Twitch. Support me in the way that you feel like is best. And thank you for being here. I love you guys. Also, Tia's here. Say hi, Tia.
Hi, Tia.
You are a menace.
Tomorrows, a billion-year chronicle of the myriad species and mixed fortunes of man.
So I love these kind of things. These are the kind of things I can just listen to and enjoy.
Mars. It took centuries to terraform the red planet. First, they made oceans using the water from comets. Then they sent microbes to create breathable air, then introduced genetically modified plants and animals. It was only after Mars was transformed into a habitable world that the first people came to Mars in colonies.
And then centuries later, they decided that they wanted to expand even further and went to the nearby planet of Earth, sending their tripod-type ships to try and invade, only to then realize that Tom Cruise was the bastion of humanity, and by the sheer power of plot convenience, Tom Cruise single-handedly saved the entirety of the human race, and the inhabitants of Mars receded back to their red planet.
Ships. So the first steps on Mars were taken not by astronauts, but by barefoot children on lush green grass. The people of Mars developed their own culture and identity separate
That is
to
certainly
Earth.
a mugshot.
The low gravity made
That's what
Martians
happens when you
tall
mew.
and spindly, and they became almost a different species to the Earthlings. For hundreds of years, the 2 planets coexisted, but as Mars started to surpass...
Look, if Call of Duty has taught me anything, the second you have... Like, we can't even live on Earth without having intersect fighting with each other. You think that sending our own people off to Mars, sure, initially they start out as envoys, but then they become Martians. And if there's one thing that America's taught us in the modern years, that we don't like illegal aliens. That it's them and us now. It's them and us.
Past Earth, tensions led to war. Interplanetary war wasn't glorious or exciting. There were no heroic pilots or massive spaceships. The war was fought by complicated, automated machines in a slow, strategic, nerve-wracking contest that caused unimaginable destruction. Billions of people died in the war, and humans almost went extinct. So the survivors of Earth and Mars...
So this is the predecessor to Warhammer 40k. This is the Dark Ages. Actually, it isn't far off. Like, this could almost be intersected as a Warhammer 30k story.
Yeah, this is almost Dark Age of technology.
Mars united and made a plan to ensure this would never happen again. Humanity made massive reforms to their politics and economics, and they changed themselves. They genetically modified humanity into a new subspecies called the Star People, made to be
This is literally just Warhammer.
better, smarter, and adapted to expand into space. And it worked. Within a few generations, they unified Star People.
Like, don't get it twisted. This is very interesting. I joke because that's the kind of person I am, but I am legitimately very interested in this. I love this kind of like alternative universe. Wait, did you know that we have a Discord and a Twitch? No? Well, now you do. So what are you waiting for? Why don't you click those little links over there and be part of the fun? Just like the rest of us cool kids, you know what I'm saying? This kind of
Other stars were too far away to fly to in person. So instead, the Star People sent out automated machines that would fly to distant worlds and terraform them, then...
There's a couple of games and cinematic things that utilize this similar kind of trope. There was an animated series or an indie project I saw called Scraphead, I think it was. Which,
That's right, YouTube. We're back to pause champ.
for all intents and purposes, I don't think it's on YouTube anymore. Scraphead. Was it? Maybe Junkhead. Hang on, Junkhead. Yeah, this thing. This was the entire plot of this movie. This was made by a single person, by the way. Was very much like that proto-Earth kind of thing, where humanity had been pretty much made extinct. The automation of robots had kind of made things run wild. The true humans had evolved into something else, and it was like machines that have been left to run rampant. And there are loads of movies and series that work with that. Like Blame, for example. If you've ever seen Blame. Very similar concept. The world is just one big machination of machines and robots, and the very few humans that are still left are kind of just like existing in that world. Amazing movie, better manga.
Use genetic material to create people to live there.
Or one that you might not realize that ends up being way underrepresented. Nier Automata. Nier Automata has that exact plot.
There was a weird problem with these colonies, where many humans fell in love with the machines that had created them, and died in mass identity crises. But the colonies that survived thrived, and expanded across the galaxy, starting a golden age for humanity.
Oh my god, it's literally
Trillions of people lived peaceful, utopic lives. Their worlds united by communication across centuries of light. As the Star People explored space, they discovered...
So I feel like it's following the same footsteps, but I feel like it's going to probably segue into more of an eldritch fantasy thing by the sound of it.
Discovered some alien creatures, but didn't find any intelligent life. So they wondered, were humans alone in the galaxy? On one alien world, they found a fossil of a bird-like creature that didn't seem related to the other native life. The native creatures had 3 limbs and copper bone.
One mythos that I really enjoy that, as a story trope, doesn't get as much attention as I think it should, is the plot device in Mass Effect, where the reason why humans are the only, advanced, species in this part of the solar system is because of, universal extinction events that happens to keep the universe trimmed, as it were. And then each galaxy has their own respective intelligent life that sort of take prominence in that universe. And then it's just a constant cycle of, society growing, expanding, being wiped back to prevent overexpansion, etc., etc. I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's something that I think kind of doesn't get played on enough in a lot of mediums.
But this bird had 4 limbs and calcium.
Because you think about it, right? In the grand scheme of things, there were planets and universes that existed long millions of years before ours did. In the grand scheme of things, if you look at the science of it, the Milky Way is a relatively young galaxy across the spectrum of the universe. So the fact that there were other universes that came before us, either there is a overwhelming greater evil, like the Tyranids, the darkness from Destiny, that exists, and somehow we've managed to avoid it, and eventually they're going to come back and wipe us out again because they didn't do their job properly, or it is just because the universe is that expansive.
Seemed related to an extinct dinosaur from Earth. So how the hell did this extinct Earth animal end up on this distant alien world? Some people thought God must have done it, and there was a resurgence of religion. But others thought aliens did it, that there must be some civilization out there who had spaceflight and bioengineering millions of years.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of the universe, maybe a bit of a tinfoil hat moment of me, but I believe we're not alone. I believe somewhere in the universe, maybe in a distant galaxy, there is other intelligent life. Probably way more advanced than we are. But the galaxy is just that that hugeness that we just haven't run into each other.
Years before humans
I'm
had
also staring at this
Humanity hoped that these aliens
this
would
is
be
how
peaceful,
HR Giger
but just in case.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. This feels very HR Geiger.
It's gonna turn into Scorn at this rate.
Weapon.
That was a great game as well. I loved Scorn.
No, it wasn't.
So
that game was
powerful.
shit.
I thought it was cool because it tweaked.
The game had really cool themes, but the game itself was shit.
I thought it was cool because it tweaked my transformation kink. Okay, don't judge me.
Well, they could obliterate.
Why does everything always? Miss, I'm not a DJ. Why does it
useless.
always come back to kinks?
Humanity was attacked by a godlike ancient species called the Q.
Wait, the Q? The Q-tan? The Q-tan? You see what I did there? You see what I did there?
No, it's Q from Star Trek. Come on.
Oh my god.
Were galactic nomads who constantly migrated through space, and they had a fanatical religious mission to remake the universe using genetic manipulation. So when the Q found humans, they didn't see them as people. They were just objects to be changed into whatever shape the Q wanted.
Oh, this is very
Within
Geiger.
1,000 years, the Q destroyed human civilization. But some human species lived on, because the Q used their bioengineering technology to reshape humanity into thousands of bizarre subspecies.
That is very, very Geiger.
Yeah.
You open the box, and so I came. No, that is legitimate Geiger. It's very Scorn, you know? You get the walls of flesh and everything.
Humans into tools.
Finally, a universe where Fortnite doesn't exist. Thank God.
Into pets.
No, Fortnite
into wild animals. They ruled over the human worlds for 40 million years, and then they fucked off to find their next victims, leaving humanity divided and differentiated beyond recognition. These twisted species were the last remnants of humanity. On one world, where the husks of dead cities baked under a scorching sun, lived the worms.
Ugh.
They were humans, but the Q had modified their hands and feet into tiny, feeble appendages, reduced their eyes to pinpricks, and removed most of their brain. All their lives, the worms dug aimlessly through the ground. If they found food, they ate it. If they found other worms, they sometimes ate them or reproduced. They were wretched, mindless creatures.
Yeah, Deathblood, thank you, Tier 1.
Their humanity would...
Wait, sorry, I think they misspoke, because it sounds like they're just describing VTubers.
Eventually resurface. On another world were the Titans, who roamed a vast savanna. Their hands were clumsy stumps, but their lower lip was like the trunk of an elephant, and could be used like a hand. They were some of the smartest of the new human species, and gradually they achieved sentience. They built homes, agriculture, language, literature, made ornate wood carvings. In booming voices they told myths and legends of the bygone, half-remembered past. With enough time, these titans could have started a new humanity, but an ice age hit the planet, and these gentle giants disappeared forever. On other worlds, humans had been twisted into predators, looking like vampires.
And here we go. Oh no.
So I feel as though there was maybe a little bit of subterfuge here, because I using my incremental knowledge of Clip Studio Paint and editing skills, I have found that there was a sub-layer to this illustration. And I, for the first time in all of history of this series, I'm now here to reveal it to you. Oh my god! Guys, I knew it! I fucking knew it! There it was, staring in the face, even in the 98th millennium, fucking predators still exist! Oh, shit! Look, it was either that or Dr. Disrespect, okay?
And werewolves of myth, with sharp claws and killing teeth. Their prey were also human, made into herbivores with bird-like feet. The prey had the dull minds of animals.
Look, that was totally worth the effort.
Kept some spark of human intelligence, which would eventually re-emerge. The mantelopes were bred to be singers and memory retainers for the
Christ, look at the sack on that thing!
They had fully human minds. They understood the world around them. But in the bodies of grazing herd animals, they were powerless to change anything. So for centuries, mournful herds roamed the planet,
Oh my god, the
singing
thumbs.
songs
Holy shit!
of desperation and loss. They created whole religions and oral traditions around their grief and frustration, until gradually, mercifully, their agony faded. 'Cause evolutionarily, a stupid, simple-minded mantelope survives as well or better than a conscious, sad mantelope. So within 100,000 years, this melancholy world fell silent. Human minds aren't sacred to evolution, and soon only animals remained. The lizard herders were the lucky ones, because the Q wiped out their intelligence and stunted their brains so that they could never regain sentience with some herbivorous reptiles. And while the lizard herders stayed simple-minded, the
That's so
reptiles
creepy, though.
evolved, slowly growing
You know what it
stronger
is? This kind of
and
style,
smarter.
H.R. Geiger style, is just meant to unsettle
The
you.
Q twisted humanity into a variety of aquatic creatures. There were limbless eel people and whale-like behemoths, and horrifying multitudes of brainless wallowers that served as food stock. Most of them went extinct when the Q left, but the swimmers survived, feeding on fish
that's not
and crustaceans in their world's
unsettling to look
oceans.
at all.
They didn't look much like humans, but human eyes peered through their blubbery eyelids, and they spoke to each other, though underwater they couldn't hear each other's words. The Tempters were so fucked up it's a wonder they survived at all. The Q made them into bizarre living
Why does it look like it's got pubes around its goddamn nape?
decorations.
Yeah, no, this is
2-meter-tall
like
cones of
Geiger
flesh
levels
like
of unsettling.
grotesque carnivorous plants. Those were the females. The males were mindless little monkey imp creatures who blindly served their queen, controlled by vocal
Thank you
and
for the hype train, guys.
pheromonal signals. They'd gather the food and guard their
they
queen,
do it?
and occasionally they would mate by descending into this breeding tube like a subway commuter.
Look, they want you to think that this idea of this breeding chamber is new. We've all seen Dragon Ball Z. The tail kink has existed for a very long time.
It was weird, but it worked, and the Tempters' mound forests spread across their world. They could have built some kind of civilization, but they were obliterated by
Good!
a stray comet, and one of humanity's best
The way
and
the weebs
weirdest
went.
hopes died out. The Bone Crushers looked like monsters, like giants or ogres with beaks derived from teeth. They only ate putrefying meat, and they
Ew.
communicated by defecating on each other. But they were
Hyper, thank
actually
you for the
pretty
$10.
successful. They reached a medieval level of civilization until they ran out of rotting meat to eat and eventually collapsed.
How's that work?
When the Q attacked, most human worlds were quickly defeated, but one world fought back, resisting the Q 2 times before falling. The Q punished and humiliated this world for its resistance by making them into
You know, Hyper doing everything they've done makes me convinced that they are a suspiciously wealthy furry. If you want to prove me wrong, how many fursuits do you own?
the Colonials. The Colonials were disembodied cultures of skin, connected with a network of basic nerves. The Q used them as living filtering devices, living off Q waste products. And for no other reason than to make the Colonials suffer, the Q left them with their consciousness and their eyes.
That is so
that they could fully witness
Hellraiser.
their own rending fate. For 40
Oh my
million
god. So I might be making some unhinged comments, but someone in my Twitch chat just said, this video isn't nearly my most disappointing fap. Oh god. We live in such a... I think the Q need to visit us. I think the Q need to visit. Ugh.
years, the Colonials
Freezy,
suffered
thank you for the tier 3
generations
resub.
of misery, hoping
There you
for
go.
their own extinction. But they were made to be efficient.
Hey, look, guys. As a reward for the level 7 scam train, goblin butt. Goblin butt. Beautiful, beautiful goblin butt. Hey,
and so
palate
they
cleanser.
spread across the planet in quilt-like fields of human flesh. The Q made lots of flying human species, some like bats or pterosaurs, others
this actually
like
makes me feel so
angels or
unsettled.
demons dancing through the ether, or strange, ugly creatures that floated on glands full of gas. One species...
This legitimately just feels like the Q discovered humanity, realized they were kind of good looking, and were like, you know what? You can't be that good looking. The Q were like, if we can't be that good looking, no one can. So then they did this to them in a smite of outrage and ignorance and jealousy.
Called the Flyers had a special starfish-shaped heart that processed oxygen so efficiently that they had enough energy to support flight as well as human-like brains. Other flying species weren't so lucky. The hand flappers had wings that were...
do you guys remember the song from like 2009? The do your balls hang low? Can you tie them in a bow? Can you throw them over your shoulders? Do your balls hang low?
Useless for flying, but also couldn't be used as hands. All they could do was flap about to display their sexual availability, and so they ecstatically flashed and danced their way to extinction.
Good.
Some humans tried to escape the Q by hiding underground. The Q found them anyway, and made them into subterranean mousy Morlock people called the Blind Folk. They used whiskers and long fingers and big ears and banshee-like screams to navigate in the dark.
An entire species of people that do nothing more than enjoy the suffering of the people they interact with? Reddit? Reddit?
Reddit.
They lived off fungi and fish, and avoided predation by bats and
I don't know, these guys
creatures.
don't look like they'd be very fun to be around, if I'm honest.
These albino troglodytes looked fairly human, but where their eyes should have been, there was nothing but haunting, smooth skin. Eventually, the movement of tectonic plates crushed these underground habitats one by one. On a planet with extremely high gravity, the Q made the Lopsiders.
What is
Black,
that?
deformed, asymmetrical creatures right out of the fever dreams of Picasso.
This isn't even just Geiger anymore. This is almost like R.L. Stein, sort of The Thing levels of body horror now.
Ali or Bosch. The Lopsiders crawled along the ground on 3 hands, with another limb used as an antenna. One eye stared straight up, while the other eye scanned ahead. As
that's so
wretched as
weird
they
looking!
Looked, the Lopsiders
don't like
thrived
it.
on their
That's the
heavy
weirdest one of them
work.
all so far.
They domesticated some native creatures and began the long road
Yeah,
to
Lovecraft. That's
civilization.
very Lovecraft.
On a moon with very low gravity, the Q made the Striders, enormously
That's kinda
tall,
cool.
thin creatures who walked among huge trees that towered like skyscrapers. The Striders were...
Could you imagine just being hit with the luck bat? Like, you're just on a planet and you get transformed into something that's gonna have a good way of living, or you're just unlucky and you get turned into a fleshy mound of shit on the floor.
very delicate, so even with low gravity, a fall could shatter their bones. The Striders were eventually wiped out by a bunch of chickens who, over 2 million years, evolved into deadly predators. On another world...
Oh, wow! So it was just a reciprocation of Australia! The giant lumbering creatures losing to a fucking bird. Never changes. Never changes. All they needed was some good weapons-grade munitions.
Where the humans temporarily resisted the Q punished the humans by creating an array of parasites, who were also made from humans. They were tortoise-sized, vampire-like ambulatory parasites, and smaller parasites.
Legitimately looks like the ugly male protagonist from a hentai. We all know the one I'm talking about, right? You know the men, like in those hentais, with the one that has like the male protagonist that has the ugly bara look. Ah, yes, the meme is known as Ugly Bastard. The quintessential hentai meme of the fat bastard type protagonist. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
that live
These are
attached to
the
their
corporate
hosts.
wants you to
There was
find the
even
difference
one
between these two
horrific
images.
parasite that
They're the
infested
same.
the wombs of its
They're the
victims.
same.
Many of these parasite life cycles were so elaborate
Hi,
and
Polly.
baroque that they went extinct as soon as the queue left. But some of the parasites survived and developed a symbiosis that benefited their hosts as well as themselves. One human species evolved on a world
Ooh,
of
that's
great
kind of cute.
archipelagos.
Oh my god, it's Attack on Titan!
Calm, shallow oceans sprinkled with countless islands. The fingerfishers evolved to catch fish with their long fingers adapted into fish hooks, and ate them with long snouts full of needle-sharp teeth, and their evolution would get even weirder later on. The hedonists were created by the queue to be their pampered pets, living carefree lives of pleasure. Their world was a tropical paradise of succulent fruits and lakes of sweet bacterial juice. They were the only animals on their planet and had no predators or competition to deal with. Under normal conditions, this might lead to...
I mean, they looked at that and said, oh, that's cute. It's the same way that female cosplayers at anime conventions look at the beta males trying to vie for their attention and go, oh, it's cute. It's trying to engage in conversation.
...of a population. But the queue designed the hedonists to only get pregnant after mating an enormous number of times. So the population was...
Okay, can you stop describing me now, please? Thanks.
...stable, and the hedonists filled their lives with eating, sleeping, and mind-blowing sex.
I said stop!
Their minds were blissfully empty.
Yes, Slaneshi approves of this message.
When they're having such a good time. The insectophagai adapted to eat insects. They had claw-like hands to dig, long tongues to scoop up bugs, and leathery faces to protect from bites. They lived quiet, unnoticed lives on their obscure world, but little did they...
This is like a really fun little ARG. It's a really interesting horror concept, sure. But are we all just gonna, like, ignore the fact this is clearly just somebody who has a phallus compulsion? Because there is so much dick imagery in every single photo.
There's a lot of dick imagery, yeah.
There's dicks on the characters, there's dicks in the background. This person is obsessed with phallophobia.
They know they would play a key role in the fate of humanity. When the queue attacked, not all humans were captured. Some of them escaped into space and built homes inside hollowed-out asteroids. They adapted to zero gravity by growing long, spindly limbs, and pressurized digestive systems so that they could move around in space by farting from their highly evolved sphincters.
This is definitely somebody's fetish fuel.
Yeah, I was about to say, this entire book, although grotesque and horrible, just feels like...
This is fetish work.
It really is. It is fetish work, very, very poorly disguised as a horror book.
These spaces changed.
I was promised horror, Kari. This is just weird.
With gravity,
it is weird, but it's fascinating.
They were comfortable in their weightless void worlds and paid little attention to their human relatives on the planets below.
To be fair, it just feels more like an entire repertoire of monsters that somebody created in the Spore character creator screen.
It does have that vibe, yeah.
I've seen less grotesque things made in the Spore character creator.
So across the galaxy, these twisted post-human species struggled to survive. They evolved, diversified, rose and fell, and most of them died out without the universe ever knowing they existed. Which is normal. Extinction is just as natural as speciation, and for each species that died out, new ones evolved to take their place, generating an ever-changing kaleidoscopic variety of life forms. And from this endless churn of life and death, some species rose up to achieve new kinds of sentience and civilization, like stars emerging from a dark fog.
It's almost like
the scorching.
I suppose that kind of like delves the concept of inevitability and cycle and perpetuity. The idea that as things end, so do they stay. So do they begin. And for every ending, there is a beginning. And so from what you come, so too you will you return in a way. That for every and like I suppose like just the it shows the like finality of things. The minuscularity. How each individual node is just a speck in a vast ocean in reality. Like we consider a week to be a long time, you know? In our lives we say, oh man, it's gonna be next week, that's so long away. Meanwhile, in the scope of this, you know, it's like the story of these like species are evolving over centuries and centuries and centuries, and it really puts into perspective like the scope of everything.
The transient nature of the universe.
Of the worms eventually cooled down, and life emerged onto the surface. The worms filled new ecological niches, evolving into serpentine grazers, swimmers, predators, and eventually people with human-like intelligence.
Oh.
The snake people had...
Why is there another dildo on the floor? What is with this artist and phalluses in every shot?
That's penis.
Unique spiral-shaped brains that allowed them to observe and understand their world.
It's a flute? Okay, if that's a flute, my asshole is a goddamn tambourine.
Developed
it is, though.
Shut up!
From their ancestors'
Why am I being shouted at?
They built vast cities of tightly intertwined tunnels and homes. They enjoyed books and music played as vibrations in the ground. The snake people may have looked alien, but their daily lives were full of joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams. Humanity. The predators evolved into the killer folk. Their deadly...
What is with that hand? I don't like that.
You know what I'm gonna say. Tia, you know what I'm gonna say. That's just somebody's persona.
It is.
I've seen personas that are less weird, that are more weird than that. In fact, there's a closed species within the furry fandom called Sphinxes.
The fuck is a Sphinx? I want to know. Oh, my fucking back is saying no after all that. Do I have enough cable length run that I can just...
So this is a species of like a species that was made years and years ago that was literally just designed to be a grotesque anthropomorphic kind of creature that was more like a hellspawn than anything else. And I thought they were such a cool concept, but they are designed literally to be this grotesque amalgam of deformation and body horror, and, you know, the way they eat is by hurling up their stomach from inside their body and eating things with their stomach outside their mouth. And yeah, a lot of furries decided to fuck them, but it reminds me a lot of that grotesqueness of just like demorphing the human and perversing typical sentiments of what we conceive to be human and anatomically understandable. And if you ever want to like look at the lore of Sphinxes, they are one of the coolest closed species to have ever come out of the furry fandom, because it was made by furry. And there's a lot of like there's a lot of art and stories that were made sort of around their concept. And I'm trying to show you the ones that don't have penises. Because they are very much that like body horror-esque, where they can dislocate their appendages. They are like horrifying creatures that furries will happily perverse because they like to perverse everything.
That is true. Lordy. Oh, come on.
And as a fun story, when I first found out about Sphinxes, I found this image. Bearing in mind, when I found this, I was about 19 or 20.
I hate that.
Did not
I fucking
sleep.
hate that.
I did not sleep the night that I found this.
I fucking hate that.
Legitimately, I saw this in my feed. I couldn't look away. And that night, I just could not close my eyes. I actually had night terrors because of this picture. And like the absolute motherfucker I was, the only way I ever thought I'd get by this was by confronting my fears. And I kept looking at this picture and I was like, oh my god, it's horrifying, it's horrifying. And part of me was like, would, but then the other part of me was like, I'm also fascinated by how much this scares me. Why does it scare me? Why does it unsettle me? Why is it something that makes me feel the way it does? And I found out later. I found out later. I can find this in a second.
What's wrong, Makari? Why are you running away?
Desist. Desist with your antics, right meow.
What do you mean?
Killer folk society was built around hunting and violence, and so
I'm
their
sure it
history
was.
was filled with war. For thousands of years, nomadic warriors
kinda cute,
with
though.
vast herds of once human livestock battled each other across a chessboard of continents. So their world is an archaeologist's dream, rich with the ruins of fallen kingdoms. But one faction of killer folk developed factory farming and rejected their violent past for a more peaceful, unified future. Some conservative factions kept to the old way, fanatically devoted to tradition.
Okay, is he describing like an alien race or is he describing Florida?
What is wrong, Makari? You scared of a little night?
I'm not afraid of night terrors. Shut up. I'm a big, strong sucker. I'm a strong slime lady. I ain't afraid of nothing. But occasionally I get a little bit rustled by things that make my amygdala wiggle. Yeah, I think we're all allowed to be unsettled. I think this is a prime example of something that makes you unsettled. The entire point of this kind of thing is to unsettle you. And being afraid of something doesn't make you a pussy. Being afraid of stuff is your way of your amygdala saying, hey, you want to stay alive, and this is your way of making sure that you're doing things to keep yourself alive. So when something scares you, it's not because you're a pussy. I'm not being a pussy because I'm afraid of stuff. I just know what is designed to unsettle me, and what unsettles me is something that's a threat to my existence. So therefore, I should have seen that coming a mile away. And with that, Tia, I am going to punch you in the face with my face. I swear to God!
Fear just makes the meat sweeter.
That's the fun part. I'm into that shit. That's the fun part. I'm into that shit. Aha!
Warfare and hunting.
You're
These
also
two
evil.
factions came dangerously close
I'm
to
evil?
global conflict, but
Who
the
even
killer
did
folk
that?
managed to
Hello?
reconcile and survive. Underwater,
You're so
the
cute when you
swimmers
get embarrassed.
couldn't make fire, so they made a different kind of technology. They learned to breed their tools. and machines.
Breeding, guys! They're talking about breeding! Wojak point! They're talking about something relevant for you! They're talking about breeding!
It's not relevant for them. They'll never do it.
Domesticated and modified
Exactly.
other sea creatures.
That's why it's relevant.
And built entire cities powered by organic life.
Oh my god, what we don't realize is that this is all just taking place in Florida.
Huge heart-like creatures pumped nutritious fluids through a network of self-healing conduits, like a living power grid. The breeders' homes were made from living shells.
You know, there's a phrase from Dragon Ball Z Bridge. This entire thing could be described as, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't bother me, it bothers me a lot. It bothers me so much. I cannot understand why anyone would want to go and watch something of this nature. It is diabolical, it is absurd, and absolutely fills my brain with a tiption that makes me question everything.
She's
hell
aroused,
and
Jet.
bone with bioluminescent lights. They had televisions derived from cephalopod skin, medicinal sea squirts, weapons made from mollusks that fired teeth as ammunition. With genetic modification, stem cells, and tissue cultures, the tool breeders mastered the oceans, and even the small landmasses of their world. But they weren't content with just one planet. The tool breeders grew living spaceships and reached for the stars.
So they were the
Cool.
Zerg?
The lizard herders were stunted and never achieved sentience. But the lizards thrived and eventually built civilizations using...
That's when the dog starts taking you. Yeah, that's literally the in Soviet Russia, lizard makes you into a pet moment.
the humans for transport.
Oh my
labor,
god,
and
that's
food.
literally what it is.
These lizards had no biological connection to humanity, but they took
And so the breeder becomes the bred. Ah! You are bastards! You all are!
on a human-like cultural identity, because they were influenced by the ruins of the Star People on
Keep it
their
up,
world.
chat. She's
They
adorable.
realized what the Q had done to the humans, and feared that if the Q returned, they might suffer the same fate. For millions of years, the Colonials were helpless fields of flesh, carpeting the shores of their world.
But what could they be molded into? The malleable, given form.
Like algae. But they were resilient, and eventually they organized themselves, evolving from a homogeneous mass into differentiated colonies.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen with these guys. But once again, that's a penis.
Each cell
Yeah, they can mouth
specialized to
vaginas.
perform different functions for the colony, and the colonies started competing against each other. Some colonies grew taproots to siphon resources from afar, or starfish-like feet to move around, or claws and poisons to attack other colonies. The winner of this evolutionary arms race was an intelligent colony called the Modular people. In their vast...
Man, that's going to have to be like the name of somebody's band now. And now coming to the stage, the Modular people.
Industrial megalopolis, the people took a wide variety of shapes and sizes. They could combine themselves, or split apart, or exchange parts, all interchangeable.
These are hunters from Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are just hunters from Halo.
Yeah, they're just the worms.
I love the idea of like colonies turning into something sentient.
Cells playing a role in one great organism. So the Modular people achieved the impossible, turning their miserable existence into a utopia where billions lived happy lives as part of the unified whole. The Flyers diversified into many different species, as predators, herbivores, even swimmers. One species were like storks who waded
The
through
Modular
swamps
people.
to catch their
Unbent
prey.
and
Their
uncut.
versatile feet, which had evolved to catch slippery fish, became articulate hands as they developed intelligence and society. Since these Pterosapiens could fly, they had a global mindset. Borders and nations made no sense when it was so easy to travel freely. People and ideas spread quickly across their planet, and they built an egalitarian society.
See, as weird as this is, this whole idea of endology, homeost. There's a term for it. Like endogeology. No, it's like the concept of how something evolves and spreads, and seeing how like the different environmental factors affect each of the species to how they have the end result of what they end up being is really fascinating. Like seeing evolution is interesting, but the progression of their societies, like seeing how almost inevitable it is for any species with sentience to do things for its benefit. It's really, really cool. It's such a fascinating concept.
Without strict social classes. They built cities of perches and fluting
Ecology?
towers,
Yeah, I guess ecology.
harnessed nuclear power, and farmed their relatives on the ground for food. Though their civilization thrived, their bodies struggled to support their highly developed brains and their power of flight. So the Pterosapiens usually died by the...
I'm sorry, someone in the YouTube chat just said, imagine dating a modular person, or are they all dating? that is the same question that you ask when you date a set of Siamese twins. You're dating one of them, but what does that mean the other one is?
Polyamorous relationship.
Oh,
the
God.
Age of 23. Keenly aware of their mortality, they appreciated every
endocrinology
moment
is just
of
the
their lives.
look of drugs.
Their
and,
philosophers pondered the
your
meaning of
homeostasis.
life with feverish intensity, rapidly filling libraries with their tomes. The Pterosapien in this picture poses at a seaside resort. This 10-day vacation was the only holiday in her short life. Despite the crushing gravity of their world, the Lopsiders built an advanced
So what are these going to evolve into? Functional humans?
civilization. Their pancake flat buildings spread all over their world, and they developed spaceflight so that they could escape.
Really? These guys developed spaceflight. Okay, I'm not gonna like sit there and judge, but I do have to have a bit of skepticism.
Their planet and its oppressive gravity. To adapt to life on new worlds, they engineered.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That's a vagina and that's a penis.
Engineered a subspecies of themselves who could live in low gravity, called the Asymmetric people. The Asymmetric people thrived in the freedom of new worlds, but they had no love for their creators. The Asymmetric people ruthlessly exterminated the Lopsiders on their homeworld, and went on to explore the heavens alone. The parasites and their hosts evolved symbiotic relationships. Like, some parasites used sharp...
And that is right out of scorn. So, fun thing, and I'm not sure whether this will end up in the final video for YouTube or not, because I'm pretty sure this will get me DMCA claimed, even though it came out in 1999. The style of this reminded me eerily of a scene from an old movie from 1999 called Existence. And it's more about the idea and the connotation of the grotesqueness of that Geiger, Brunnen, and sort of Lovecraftian style of things, where you take something normal and you turn it into something grotesque, horrible, and the act of something normal just becomes something disgusting becomes normal. This scene sticks out in my head. I saw this when I was like 11, and it haunted my dreams. Yeah, so that's about as much of that as we're gonna take. Yeah, good movie, by the way. Really good movie. Absolute classic body horror. In a similar vein as The Thing in some respects, actually. But it's my point, right? And if you guys watched this and you were wondering what that was from the Patreon side of things, we just watched a little section from Existence with the fish gun, talking about body horror, essentially, and the origins of it, and how you can see inflections of it in all forms of media these days. And I think it's such a cool thing. I think like, body horror, grotesqueness needs to be something that people understand more of, because I think people are too pussyfooted with movies these days. I think there's people shy away from doing things that are considered weird or problematic. It's the reason why we've not had satirical comedy for a while. You know, we haven't had a good Naked Gun or scary movie in years. And I think this new Naked Gun movie coming out, relatedly, might hopefully kickstart people to remember that we were able to make movies like that and to not have to be afraid of putting body horror or satire comedy into our videos. But anyway, back to the main thing.
Sensors to warn their hosts of predators, or provide weapons like venom for defense. In return, the hosts provided their nutritious blood, and developed specialized nesting sites on their bodies for the parasite to attach to, rich with blood vessels and protective fur. The parasites and hosts became inextricably linked, almost like they were one being. At first, the hosts were like horses being steered and influenced by the parasites, but eventually they became no more than puppets, totally controlled by the parasites through tactile and olfactory signals. The intelligent parasite civilization eventually developed technology that replaced the need for hosts. But they kept the hosts around for tradition and convenience. An average symbiote might start the day in a business host and then change to a comfortable domestic host at home after work. The world of the fingerfishes was full of scattered, isolated islands.
So tasty!
So like the Galapagos or Madagascar on Earth, these islands were a seething evolutionary cauldron that gave rise to wildly diverse species. One line of fingerfishes evolved into the sail people. Their long fingers evolved into sails that could drive them effortlessly across oceans. They used their tongues to catch
But what that mouth do, though? Also, their head's a penis.
prey, and eventually their tongues split and articulated to be used as hands. The sail people needed strong memories to navigate the oceans and locate prey, so naturally they soon evolved intelligence. It took a long time to develop social and political stability, because their scattered and diverse world gave rise to a huge variety of creatures who fiercely competed. For generations, flotillas of tribal warriors and pirate societies battled in epoch-spanning conflicts, until finally one group of sail people became powerful enough to finally unify their world and make peace.
Interesting.
Blood had stained the oceans for too long. The peaceful paradise of
each of these universes have such a interesting cartography of events and how different things go.
Hedonists seemed like it would never end, but over millions of years, nothing lasts forever. Geologic activity threw up clouds of dust that blocked the sun and killed most of the hedonists. Only a small mutant subset survived by escaping the reproductive limits of their ancestors. These satyriacs got their shit together and built an advanced self-sustaining civilization, so their societies retained a delightful streak of pleasure-seeking and promiscuity. Festivals, concerts, and ritualized orgies punctuated every working week. And now that pleasure was savored by sentient, self-aware people. The insectophagi started to look like their prey. Their leathery faceplates hardened and became part of their jaw. Their hands and feet developed into pincers, and their brains evolved intelligence. Like many others, the
Guys, hey, listen. If these bug faces can develop intelligence, what's stopping you, huh? Think about it. But don't think about it too hard. I know you're lacking intelligence.
bug faces built a civilization, but they also faced a unique threat.
Oh no.
They were attacked by an alien race. Little is known about these aliens, because not much survived in the historical record, but it took an intense series of wars on the ground and in orbit before the invaders were defeated. And this traumatic conflict gave the bug faces...
Well, of course I'm stopping you from developing intelligence, because if you develop intelligence, you'll be independent, and I can't have that now, can I?
A pathological, xenophobic fear of all other species. So when the human species on other worlds started to reach out to each other, the bug faces stayed silent and withdrew from the galaxy. The spaces became even more alien in the void of space. Their fingers...
And this is where we find out that this is all leading up to our modern society.
Probably,
extended and split into tiny, grasping limbs.
I forgot if this is like the future or if this is the past that led to humans then going to Mars. I forget.
In the weightless void of space, their brains expanded till their every thought was far more vast and complex than anything that.
Oh my god! I just noticed if you turn your head to the side, their buildings it's like the entire image is skewed. Oh wow, this image is kind of wild. Like if you look at this from different angles, it just makes sense any which way you look at it.
Conceive. These Asteromorphs spread to every star system in the galaxy, but they didn't interfere with other species. The Asteromorphs had no need for planets, those ugly balls of dirt and ice and gravity. They stayed in the outer rims of star systems, silently watching over the galaxy.
And you know what all the other species would say when they see the Asteromorphs going by? Pussies!
galaxy like strange alien gods. The advanced post-human species started making contact with each other. The killer folk talked with the Satyriacs, the tool breeders reached out from their ocean depths, the Modular people and the Pterosapiens joined in, followed by the Asymmetric people.
And then they all for days to make humans.
Pterosapiens and others. They didn't visit each other in person, because the interstellar distances were too large, but they cooperated by sharing knowledge and technology, and by keeping watch for alien invasions. They all had found the ruins of the Star People and the Q, and they didn't want to be attacked and changed.
Oh, yeah,
again.
so this is after, because the Star People evolved from the Martians,
This
right?
is eerily like the story of Mass Effect. Like, legitimately one for one, only instead of, like, whatever, it's like the humans were still there, more or less.
Of post-humans lasted for almost 80
And the Q are basically the
years,
Reapers.
with each species expanding to new worlds and prospering together.
It's about as well
the
written.
The bug faces never joined them because they were afraid and xenophobic. But there was one other advanced species that didn't join, and from them would come the downfall of the Alliance. The Ruin Haunters were much like other species.
Fucking Ruin Haunters, of course. It's always the Ruin Haunters. They've always gotta be the ones who causes a ruckus.
The Q. But on their world, the cities of the Star People hadn't been completely destroyed, so the Ruin Haunters had access to remnants of the Star People's technology, which allowed them to advance.
I seriously hope these guys communicate by going,
dangerous pace. The technology developed so fast that their social and political structures didn't keep up, and they almost destroyed themselves in a series of worldwide nuclear wars. This baptism by fire hardened the Ruin Haunters and kind of drove them crazy. They convinced themselves that they alone were the true descendants and heirs of the Star People, and that only
oh, so they were the North Korea of the universe. Cool!
They deserved to reclaim the legacy of the golden age of their ancestors. So when the other human species formed their alliance, the Ruin Haunters refused to participate. But the Ruin Haunters' sun was rapidly expanding and threatened to burn and destroy their worlds. So the Ruin Haunters used their super advanced technology to abandon their organic bodies and replace them with machines.
Borg or Geth from Mass Effect.
Or Necrons.
Or Necrons. They are very Catan looking, certainly.
They became the Gravitals.
Gravitals. You know, I don't... I think I love the creativity, but I think the person coming up with these names needs to be fired.
That could mold the environment around them with gravity fields. They were entirely mechanical, but they still had human minds coded into quantum computers. So they still had human ambitions and human delusions. Twisted with neurotic, narcissistic hubris, the Gravitals started to exterminate all other life. And the other humans...
So what happens when the Q comes back and see them doing their job for them? The Q are like, oi! You're wiping out all of the life in this universe! That's our job, you plebs!
Species were unable to stop them. The Gravitals would come to a human world and block out their sun behind a vast black sail. If the choked, dying world managed to resist, they were finished off with an asteroid. The Gravitals didn't hate other species, they just didn't see them as people, and so they wiped them out like
Daleks?
one might swat a fly.
Nah.
All the snake
Victorian
people,
British.
the tool breeders, Pterosapiens, and the others who had worked so hard to survive were snuffed out one by one. The only survivors of these genocides were the shy and xenophobic bug faces. For reasons unknown, they alone were kept alive, and the Gravitals used them as subjects for biological experimentation. The Gravitals twisted them into new forms so strange that they made
literally became the Q.
work of the Q look tame. As well as servants and laborers, they made the subjects into bizarre art pieces, like creatures that existed only to play the tune of one particular pop song on its modified throat and fingers. They made whole elaborate artificial ecologies of doomed human flesh, purely for entertainment and curiosity. The Gravitals recycled and repurposed organic life the same way someone might tinker with computer parts or recycle trash. And for millions...
You know, I'm starting to get a deep-seated urge to want to replay Mass Effect now. I'm not sure why. It could be this whole thing I'm watching, but I don't know.
Of years, that was how organic life existed in the Machine Empire. But not all Gravitals
and I can play as
saw
Commander
life the
Shepard.
same way.
And I can
Some
fuck
religious and philosophical...
Guys, I can fuck Miranda. I know, like, derailing everything. Guys, maybe we need to play Mass Effect. Not to save the world, but so we can have our love interest as being Miranda.
Sects argued that all
why do you say
forms of
that?
life had rights.
Good,
They
because you're
secretly
being a
created
typical
human
Mass Effect
species
fan.
who could live and think freely.
Well, obviously we'll fuck Garrus too. That's a given.
Some Gravitals even fell in
that's
love
the
with
problem.
their human creations. So Gravital society became divided between the
I love how
tolerant-
we're watching this whole video about the division of the universe, and yet the only thing that's dividing my chat currently is who to romance in the Mass Effect story.
Mass
Effect sucks.
Life,
You know
and the
what else sucks?
hardline
Your opinion.
conservative pan-mechanical Gravitals. This division threatened to tear the Machine Empire.
I mean, okay, I will compromise. I will say it's overhyped.
No, it's actually bad. Like the writing does not hold up.
Okay, writing I agree with, but the game itself, I think the game is a good experience from an just a gameplay perspective. I think as far as like the beats of the game goes, I mean, we're going off topic here, but like as far as the beats of the game goes, I couldn't give a shit about them. Like it's typical sci-fi schmuck.
It's mid 2000s.
It is, and it doesn't hold up by the modern year standards. But however, it like hyperbolic story beats, individual components, like cinematic moments especially, are freaking awesome. But only really Mass Effect 3. Everything else kind of, yeah, no, it sucked.
apart.
And
So
we're
the
not even
Gravitals
talking about
looked for a common enemy
the
to
one that came
unify
after 3.
against. For millions of years, the Gravitals and the Asteromorphs had watched each other nervously. The Gravitals on the planets and the Asteromorphs in space. They both were massively powerful and feared that a war could destroy them both. But in an attempt to unite their divided society, the Gravitals started a war with the Asteromorphs. The resulting conflict raged for millions of years and scarred uncounted stars. But in the end, the Asteromorphs triumphed and defeated the Gravitals, toppling their machine empire. And the Asteromorphs decided to clean up the mess that the machines had made. They took the surviving humans, who the Gravitals had twisted, and created habitable worlds for them to live in. The Asteromorphs played God, seeding life across the galaxy, and the human species rose reborn as inheritors of the war-torn worlds, under the watchful eye of the Asteromorphs. The Asteromorphs wanted to ensure that no genocidal arseholes would ever conquer the galaxy again, so they created a smaller, simpler version of themselves called the Terrestrials to live on the human worlds. The Terrestrials played the role of kings, prophets, and caretakers.
Yes, because I'm sure that never ends poorly. Why segregate yourselves again? That only creates more boundaries. More boundaries makes more problems. More problems makes more headaches.
Guiding their worlds along a wise and peaceful path. It didn't always work out too well. Sometimes worlds rebelled, so the Asteromorphs destroyed them. Sometimes the Terrestrials were corrupt and exploited their subjects.
See what I mean?
One way or another, the human worlds spread and formed a prosperous galactic empire. The Gravitals weren't completely...
This is literally StarCraft 2. The godlike omniscient creatures, the Tal'Darim, not the Tal'Darim, the other ones, the old ones. I can't remember the actual name for them. The ones where you find one living creature still alive, and it's like the creatures that shaped the world, and the Xel'Naga, because it's if you look into the lore of StarCraft 2 enough, it's actually considered that the Xel'Naga are the unifying creatures that unify the StarCraft, the World of Warcraft, and the other IPs that Blizzard make into the same universe. Because the Xel'Naga appear in a lot of World of Warcraft like mythoses when you look hard enough. And it's considered that that's the thing that brings these universes together to make them part of the same, like, sort of scope, if you will. And it's kind of got a similar vein to that. Like, you got the, not the Terraforming, the Asteromorphs, whatever they're called. Those being basically the Xel'Naga. And then the Protoss were basically the Terrestrializers.
Destroyed by the Asteromorphs. It turned out that it was pretty useful to have super advanced machines around. So the Asteromorphs just disabled their gravity weapons and numbed their minds a bit to discourage rebellion. And they used the Gravitals as laborers to work in dangerous environments. These new machines were given nanotechnological bodies that could transform into any shape. They eventually became citizens of the Empire, but were often discriminated against. Machines were never fully trusted after the atrocities of the Gravitals. Eventually, the human Asteromorph Empire made contact with life from other galaxies, including the Amphicephali, these weird...
This just keeps getting worse! This just keeps getting worse!
Snakes.
It does keep getting
weirder
and weirder
inside their snakes. Apparently, these creatures had had an evolutionary history just as long and complex as humanity had. And after all that they'd both been through, the life forms of each galaxy were finally
Cyber, you're about 50 minutes late to the party. We've already decided this is someone's weird... Like, this is somebody's weird set of kinks and someone's penis obsession deciphered very poorly into a ARG horror book.
Conflict. This video won't describe all intergalactic history. The stories are endless. How the United Galaxies re-encountered and defeated the Q, how they cradled their suns in artificial shells and crossed space through wormholes. But one moment worth relating is the rediscovery of Earth. A lone researcher located the birthplace of humanity, where all...
And this is where my my comparison to Spore comes in, because this is very much how Spore goes. This is all one person's very, very extravagant adventure in Spore.
The Asteromorphs and machines and post-humans could trace their origins.
It still holds up.
Earth had gone stagnant and feral by then, an obscure and empty world. But after 500 million years of absence, humans returned to their homeworld, though both had changed beyond recognition. I have to end with a confession. Humans, Asteromorphs, machines, and all their descendants are now extinct. They've been dead for 1 billion years. This video is just our best approximation of their history, based on the available archaeological evidence. We don't know what killed off the humans. Maybe some unimaginably destructive war. Maybe their empire broke up, and each world suffered its own slow, private death. Some claim that humanity migrated into some higher plane of existence. We don't know what happened, and ultimately, it doesn't...
I do! They all became literal VTubers and died of cringe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That has been 50 minutes worth of content out the window.
Matter. The story of humanity was never about its end, not about its ultimate domination of galaxies or its transcendence from reality. Being human was always about the daily lives of people, from the love songs of the carefree hedonists to the pontifications of the Pterosapiens to the families of the sail people sharing a meal. Grander narratives and absolute ideals are always what led to humanity's worst atrocities. The Gravitals massacred to reclaim the past. The Q conquered for some fanatical, idealized future. Living for some abstract ultimate goal so often leads to destruction. So when you look on the remains of the long-gone human species, Remember that it's the present that matters, not the past or future. What you do
that's some metaphysical nonsense.
Tomorrow, not the other way around.
Philosophy is something that I could sit here doing a TED Talk about, and it's very true.
Seize all tomorrows.
Wow.
All tomorrow.
That was a whole ass experience. Was it worth the time investment? I'm not sure. It was weird, it was bizarre, and wasn't quite what I was expecting, but honestly, that was very, very interesting. Very, very thought-provoking, if you will. But to that extent, guys, I don't know if this is something you liked. If you want to see more creepy stuff, maybe some more ARG stuff, let me know in the comments if there's any suggestions for things you'd like to see. And, yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time. I need to go have a very deep thought now. Bye!